Hello, fellow gamers. This is Tim, SamY7. I'm a little tired, but I'm making some videos today. I want to talk today about the random esoteric creature generator. And this thing is a really tiny little thing, and it's from Goodman Games. And this is more geared towards your traditional, more old school, or retro clone kind of games. Basically those that emulate older versions of D&D, but it's not hard at all to use this for, say, like Dungeons and Dragons 3.5, Dungeons and Dragons, third edition, fourth edition, probably not so much, but I'd say any of those games or any pretty much like fantasy game in general, you can use this to kind of break the mold as far as monsters go. And what this game is good for, what this it's not a game, but it's a GM supplement. And what it does is that it adds an air of mystery to the monsters again. In the beginning here, and I think I'll kind of quote what he has to say. The monsters, a critical piece to any game that strives for the fantastic, have lost all sense of wonder. The common foes have bled into every other role-playing game, into video games, into literature. A referee can come up with interesting settings, and players will react appropriately. A referee can come up with all sorts of plots, mundane and sublime, and players will react appropriately. A referee can devise fiendishly clever traps, and players will exercise due caution. But no matter how obliquely a monster is described, you can be sure the second that description ends, players will act with almost robotic predictability in their approach to fighting the monster. Of course they do. So no matter how you describe that troll, whenever they figure out it's a troll, the player knowledge versus the character knowledge I think the player knowledge kind of wins out usually. Although I have seen players that say, okay, has my character ever encountered a troll before? Or do they know anything about trolls? No? Well, then I'm gonna role play it like my character doesn't know how to kill it, how to defeat it. But I must say that some players really have a hard time with that. So what this supplement is supposed to do is it's supposed to make strange, twisted creatures that the players and their characters will have no idea what they are, what their weaknesses are, what their strengths are. And I bought this so that I could come up with creatures and that would challenge the player as well as the characters. And I've made up some pretty funky creatures with this thing. It's kind of fun to see how that all turns out. Let's see here. So it continues. Classic games challenge the player as much as the character. But when you're faced with a familiar monster, kobolds, goblins, orcs, where's the challenge? Where's the fear or the courage to overcome it? Where's the adventure? And what this seeks to do is pretty much just add the air of mystery and excitement, and make the characters and the players unsure of themselves. What really are they facing? What is lurking in the darkness? It's kind of like the Order of the Stick cartoon, with that the secret weapon that pretty much hides in the darkness the whole time. No one knows what it does. So, and basically what it does is it starts out with basically like a base creature. It says in the alignment, armor class, damage, experience, hit dice. And you kind of see where it's going here with it has definitely a traditional feel. Intelligence, morale, movement, attacks, number appearing, saves, and treasure. And it pretty much says, it has like a base creature to start with. And what happens after that is that you basically just go through, and each page has different characteristics, like for instance, body shape, basic characteristics. Is it more like a fish? Is it more like a bird? Is it something else? Reptile? And then it goes through and lists a bunch of different creatures that are kind of similar to those, so that it can kind of give you more of an idea what the physical structure of the creature looks like, the size of it, how fast it is, and different attack methods. Like, for instance, for attack methods, you roll 1d10. There's like projectile, claws, bashing, biting, spikes, horns, tails, and multiple. And you can roll on this multiple times. And you don't have to, it's kind of fun to follow it, as it says and how it's laid out. But feel free to, okay, I want this thing to have, lots of attacks. So just roll on this table a bunch. Distinctive features, is it blood drenched? Does it have a freaking beak? Things like that. Distinctive marks. And a lot of these, like this one goes for, multiple pages, and it's a D100. Special abilities, and again, depending on what game you use this for, you might have to tweak how it works, but it's pretty easy. Like, for instance, special abilities, there's like a bunch of drains listed, and there's a stat, which is, pretty much, based on the most popular RPG of all time. But it isn't hard, like if your game has, agility instead of dexterity or something like that. It would be easy to replace, whatever it lists in the chart with whatever your stats are called. Because stats are pretty much, they're pretty much all the same, Some games have more, some have less, but you get the idea. And there's multiple pages for the special abilities. Some of them are pretty interesting. And it's kind of like a grab bag of just... It's almost like if you would go through the monster manual and throw it in a blender, add some vodka, chop it up, and then just dump it on the table and just make little piles. That's what this game book does. It takes all of the abilities that all the creatures could possibly have. It doesn't have all of them, but it tries really hard to just have this plethora of ideas for making your own Frankenstein monster from all of the D&D information from the past. And you can make some really strange creatures, and that's kind of neat, especially if you're like in a dungeon that has kind of a backstory of being a strange place, or this is a place where the planes warp reality, or some mad necromancer, whatever, decided to start stitching pieces of flesh with together with different pieces of flesh from other monsters, whatever you feel like coming up with. But monsters are fun. I'm sure a lot of you have watched monster movies in the past, and you like that they have different abilities, like even going back to like Godzilla and King Kong or whatever. Except these are a little bit smaller. Things like combat strategy, delivery of special attacks. So I think you're starting to see that with all these different charts and tables, you can let the random dice roll predict what the creature's going to have, or you can go through and just look at the ideas and like, what would be really cool is if the transform rock to mud was a breath weapon. Just strange combinations like, I don't know, it breathes mud on you, or and the rock turns into mud, or maybe it's like a gas that does it. But just the delivery method of the different special abilities is kind of interesting. Like it comes up with creatures that I would never even think of, which is kind of neat, especially if you have writer's block. Combat strategy for the monster, motivation, and then there's a few pages in the back about fitting it all together, making it make sense. If it's too random, you don't have to follow the charts exactly. And there's also maybe a possibility that the creatures you make might be pretty powerful, pretty high level. So you'll have to tamper with that and see, how they balance out against the characters. But as a general rule, things with, the hit dice equal to the level of the dungeon. Okay, here comes my cat again. Is a good, just generic idea for balancing creatures. But if creatures have a lot of special abilities, then you have to take that into account as well. But there's some suggestions at the back of the book for how to make your monsters, and like I said at the beginning as well, how to make your monsters, how to use it all. Some of the artwork's kind of it's black and white, and like I said, it's a little tiny book, but there's actually a lot of information in this book with all those different charts and ideas. I think I went through one day and I spent about an hour, and I made like 15 or 20 monsters. And some of them were like the stuff of nightmares, just really out there, like, almost like Call of Cthulhu, twisted. So check us out. It's from Goodman Games, the Random Esoteric Creature Generator. All right, guys, have a good one.